2020. My name is Pavan. I am your local organizing chair and also part of the hosting team. We should be joining shortly. I've also got John Koenji, who is the general chair for the conference. John?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to TESS Conference. We're looking forward to hosting this conference and welcoming your contributions over the next 2 days.
We will make a start just about 9 o'clock. For those who have not been with us in our demo session, may I draw your attention to the agenda for today? And the agenda can be found on the top ribbon in your browser, which says Remo as a logo. And to the left of it, you've got a calendar board. So if you click onto that, you should have the agenda there, opening up as a pop-up. For those of you who are using Firefox, may I remind you that you will have to permit pop-ups for this session, and that will help you with looking at what's happening with the agenda. Okay, we will be with you shortly. Gustavo, did you want to say a few words as well, please?
Morning, everyone. Welcome to the conference. We are excited to have you all here, and let's see how this new platform goes around. We're excited about this. This has been an interesting journey to get us here. So, how many people do we have on board? Do you know, Pavan? 15, I see, right?
Got 15 in addition to 6 of our organizing team.
Yes, so welcome to our early arrivals.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little bit quiet here. Anyone wants to share something on the chat? Do you want to try the chat? Anyone had any issue with the platform? Anything that good to report? On the contrary, have any compliments? Thanks, Keith. Excellent. So, so we will see. Good, great, Steve. So we will see how this goes around. Well, for obvious reasons, we had to change our in-person kind of conference into this one. And we're happy to hear, good and bad feedback, right? It's we are learning on this one, as pretty much all the society is learning how to cope with COVID. So let's try to make the best out of this. And actually, we found that there are a few advantages of doing this way. Best one is that if you have multiple things to do in a single day, you can still attend the conference and the sessions you want, and still do some work if you have to. So it has some advantages. So let's see how it goes. We really liked Remo. We explored a little which were the alternatives, and we believe we chose a really good option specifically for conferences, which allow us to have a little bit of interaction and flow, like if this were a really an event. Thanks, Pavan. So we also are streaming some of our content on our YouTube Cranfield channel. So there's the link. Feel free to share that with anyone on LinkedIn or social media, or anyone that might be interested in listening to some of the content. That's a great opportunity.
Thank you. And I think I'd really like to emphasize that we selected this platform because it provides virtual networking opportunities. So in the breaks, please do try to talk to each other, engage with each other. The round tables are particularly for that purpose, so that you can have that virtual relationship building opportunity. I know it's not the same as face-to-face, but still, it's probably the next best option that we have available.
Indeed, actually, some people would say, well, I prefer this because I'm a little shy and I don't know how to introduce myself. Now I'm a cyber myself, so it might be easier. I don't know, you never know how these things go around. So please, use the tools that we have, and then you can actually, make some questions, on the chat, and you just need to write that. You don't even need to speak. On the contrary, if you want to speak, let us know. We can. So we only, we allow essentially certain speakers that are designated speakers to talk freely. But then, if you want to make an oral question, you just need to let us know over the chat, and the host will allow you.
Just to confirm, everyone, the links are live. It might show it as a private link, but if you do click onto the video again, it should take you to the YouTube main link. So we've tried to create a version which is free of all distractions when you actually look at it. That's why the landing page will be blank, as I showed. But if you click on the YouTube link again, it should go back to the Cranfield Uni based platform. And I think I've got most of the hosts here as well today, but perhaps Gustavo, when you do go with your presentation after Helen's message, please let us know. I will try to assemble all of the hosts to show them who they are, where they can be found, and how to reach us. Okay?
Perfect.
We'll make a start in the next sort of 5 minutes or so. And we're just at the moment just facilitating also those that are trying to log on to the system. Has anyone had any challenges to log on to the system? I guess no is a good in this situation. I think I'd also like to invite Anne to introduce herself. So I'm sure you've all been in touch with Anne already. Anne, would you like to just say a few words?
Good morning, all. Welcome to the conference. It's a great pleasure to have you all here. I hope you'll enjoy the day as much as we will do.
Actually, I think we need to say thank you to Anne for all the support and the, the kind patience that she has been. She has been so patient with all us. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne.
All right, the numbers are coming up. So we are about 30 people now log in, and we expect significantly higher number, at least based on registrations. So let's wait a few more minutes. I guess they're trying to log in.
Just to let you all know, I've just posted the PDF version of the final program. Please have a look through it. That should give you more details about the various sessions and the papers and the audits being presented. Thank you.
Helen here, just to double check. I've got to go and tune into the other university exec for a few minutes, and then I'll tune back into you. Okay, right. Okay.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's great. So that's working. I think Daniel, are you here? Daniel Brissot? Maybe we could also check if we can hear you. Gustavo, you're muted.
Yeah, I just saw him logging out.
Okay.
I've
Maybe
got Michael.
check that in a moment.
Yeah. It's a very interesting platform. Actually, it warned me that I was talking muted. So it's way cleverer than me. Yeah.
Daniel is on the stage as well.
Great, we'll just check that as well.
So, Pawan, there's a question for you in the chat. Is there a way to join a table while you join, etc., are presenting mode? And the answer, I guess, is no, right? When you're in presenting mode, you are not in the table.
Correct, but you can still find out who's in your table. So if you go to the general chat mode, and if you click on table chat, it will tell you who's in the table. Roughly, it should. Or if you type a message, it should go to all of the people in the table and you can interact. Please be aware, when you join the session, as I've mentioned previously, you're randomly put into a chair on a table. When we are out of the presentation mode, when we open up the flow space, that's when you'll be able to interact locally within the table. I think more of these details will come through during the introductory session this morning. So that's just kind of a response to what I was trying to say. I hope, Malcolm, that's clear.
Hi, Daniel. Can you hear us, Daniel?
Yes, I can hear you now.
That's great. We can see you.
It was a little bit complicated to enter your system today.
Okay.
Yesterday, okay. Now I am in.
Okay, we can hear you very well and see you very well. Thanks, Daniel. I guess we can make start in the next couple of minutes.
As a rule of thumb, can I ask everybody on the stage to turn off their cameras and microphones? So we only have the speaker and the presentation. And to general people, if you wanted to maximize the presentation, you just need to click the 4 arrows going outward on each tile. So you can maximize the cameras or the presentation. Welcome once again, and I hope you enjoy this conference. John, over to you.
Thanks, Pavan. So we'll make a start in a moment. I'd like to just again reiterate our welcome to the conference. This is the 9th occasion for this conference, and we are continuing the delivery of the conference as every 2 years it's hosted by Cranfield University, and the following year it's hosted externally in another country. So what I want to do in this introductory session is really to give you an idea about what does Through Life Engineering Services refer to. I want to explain what are the emerging challenges and what are the kind of benefits that organizations are trying to seize by implementing TES, as we call as the acronym for Through Life Engineering Services. So for me, in this first sort of introductory session, I'd like to just touch on what is Through Life Engineering Services, why is it important, how is it applied, and what are the major challenges that we're facing today, and how can we start to look into the future. And I think this conference is particularly trying to play a role with supporting the key developments that are needed to implement TES efficiently and effectively. So when we look at Through Life Services, we're not just referring to the in-service phase. We're really trying to understand the life cycle from its design to manufacturing to the in-service operations and the end of life. So if we consider the different phases and how we're providing services across those phases, what's interesting with Through Life is that we are integrating the different phases across the life cycle. So if we consider the customer support, Through Life Services is really trying to tap into the different services that are needed across the life cycle. So it's building on from post-design services. It's building on from aftermarket services. It's trying to have a comprehensive understanding of what the complex assets needs are. So it's very much focused on requirements. It's very much trying to understand demand profile, and we're trying to align the supply and the demand so that we have optimized value. So along these lines, over the past sort of about 2 years ago, across a number of partners in the UK, we worked in collaboration with the British Standards Institute and published a document called PAS 280. This is online, it's publicly available, and we developed a definition for TES. And this was really important in that numerous organizations had maybe a different perspective, a different kind of scope to what TES referred to. So the definition that was published was stating that Through Life Engineering Services are a set of capabilities, techniques, business thinking, and network behaviors that, when applied to major assets, they optimize the value and cost. And this is really important in that we're very much focusing on that optimization piece. We want to keep major assets working better for longer and to become more economical. So the other key kind of aspect here to consider is that we're focusing specifically on major assets. And with major assets, we're talking about assets that have a lifespan between 10 to 100 years, and they need significant in-use support and the investment associated. So that's really the key kind of scope and focus for TES, and that's where we're kind of trying to scope this conference. So in terms of the characteristics, and you can see on the right-hand side here, we've just listed a few example projects, and these are largely related to the UK. So for our international colleagues, you may not be aware, but HS2 is one of the major rail infrastructure projects that's taking place in the UK at the moment. Major factories, they're key assets for the UK and globally. Tempest is also another major aerospace related project in the UK that we're really trying to build the future aircraft. And another example is wind farms. And I'm not trying to highlight that TES is limited to these 4 different examples. It's really just trying to recognize that TES is really focusing on complex engineered assets. It's about the long life cycles. It's about focusing on those performance outcomes. So it's really driven by different performance targets. And it's typically high value assets. And there is a nature of system networks. So any kind of change in the system affects different parts of the system very often. So this makes it a lot more complex really to understand how the whole life cycle will be affected. And I think the other key aspect to consider is that requirements, they're not static, they're changing. And as an outcome of that, we're facing different kinds of risks, different kinds of uncertainties that are changing across the life cycle. And how we realize the impact of these is also quite complex to manage. So this is really the context, and it's when you particularly consider the different phases of the life cycle and how we need to consider these in an integrated manner, the whole context becomes relatively challenging. So what are the key drivers? So if we look at TES, there are various key kind of trends that we're observing. So firstly, the customer demand is moving in the direction of not just buying assets. There's also an appetite that's growing where we're trying to buy services, buying performance, buying outcomes. And that's maybe a shift from the traditional approach. The second aspect, particularly for the solution providers, is around the revenues. So having a kind of availability-based solution may mean that you have more stability with the income, and you may have a steady growth in terms of the income as you become more competitive in the market. So the competitiveness is another key aspect in that the know-how, the skills required to manage an integrated product service solution may be much more complex than the traditional approach. And this can offer competitive advantage. And another aspect which really we need to consider is that there are many enabling technologies. So many people are talking about things like digital twins, augmented reality, new AI-based approaches. All these approaches really need to be considered with a purpose. They need to solve problems, they need to improve the productivity, they need to improve things like efficiency and effectiveness. So we need technology to solve problems, to create opportunities for improvements. And lastly, another aspect to really consider is the fact that we're becoming more and more rich with the data that's available. So on the one hand, this might create more challenges in that if, for example, we're not collecting the data properly, if, for example, there are gaps in the data, if the data is messy, although these kind of things might be creating challenges, but ultimately, compared to maybe historical states, by having more data, we are in a much better place to predict the future in terms of the requirements. So this is just to show that when we look at through life engineering services, there isn't just a single business model. There are a whole variety of options that you have available to deliver products and services. So this was a piece of work that was published by the Aerospace Technology Institute in the UK. So what this was looking at was there's a spectrum of different levels of services that you can offer. So from basic product-centric services to more advanced services, which is more so focused on outcomes, there's a whole range of types of services that can be offered. So if I look at one extreme with basic services, it's just focusing mostly on breakdown support. It's ad hoc. There's a problem and the solution provider goes and fixes a problem. If we go to the other extreme, which is the advanced services, this is really focusing on being proactive. If I'm a solution provider, I'm now paid based on the availability or capability that I'm offering. So for that, we need to really have up-to-date information about the state of the asset. We need to plan when the interventions should take place, and we need those to be very much optimizing the outcomes that the customer is targeting. So there's a whole shift in terms of the responsibilities and the level of effort that the solution provider and also the customer is providing and being involved in the TES solution. So this is really important in terms of understanding where you sit in the through life engineering services solution spectrum, because that has huge implications in terms of what the costs are going to be, what kind of resources you need, how you're going to plan the support, the kind of supply and the demand characteristics. So I think from there, we really need to understand the different types of knowledge that's needed, the different types of tools that are needed, and the different types of technologies that are needed, because we need to be able to justify each of these things across the life cycle, because they are our investments to deliver the TES solutions. Another thing which has been published, and this was part of the PAS 280 document that's been published, is really trying to give a common framework for how we can deliver TES. So what this figure is showing is that if you want to plan the delivery of TES, there are multiple things that you need to consider. So it's not just engineering activities, it's also about the commercial activities. So here, what it's highlighting is that firstly, you need to understand what is the business context, what sort of policies are you going to be implementing. It's really also about understanding what's the suitable business model and whether you have sufficient maturity to be able to deliver such a solution. So if you don't consider these things, you won't have a good appreciation of the level of risk and uncertainty involved in the project that you're going to be delivering. The other key thing to really consider here is that your planning activities are spanning across the life cycle. So from the design to the retire phases, across all those different phases, you need to think about what are the different value generating activities. So you may consider about how the asset can become available. In that kind of process, you may need to think about how you can avoid, for example, failures or any kind of disruptions that can be caused. You may also need to consider how you sustain the availability or the performance outcomes that you're looking for over time. And lastly, you may also need to think about how you're going to sustain the performance that you're looking for after the disruption has taken place. So how do you recover this effectively? So all those kind of things will become much more effective if you've got a life cycle based approach. And I think the other thing which many people maybe forget is that to deliver your planning activities, you also need to plan all the enabling capabilities. So this means a piece of technology may actually be useful for the decisions that you're making in the future. So maybe you don't have that piece of technology available at the moment. So if you're planning well, you could actually have that piece of technology available at the different point of time that's needed. So that's also key in that we need to plan that as well across the life cycle. So in terms of moving forward, we really need to take a holistic perspective from both a strategic perspective and from a tactical perspective as well. So here on this slide, we're just trying to highlight that TES requires a holistic life cycle based approach. So from design to the end of life, we need to think of all the different elements that can actually influence the delivery of TES. So if I consider the different kind of resources as people, spares, information, test, equipment, facilities, and this is a piece of work from MOD ESCIT team, we really need to understand how we're going to plan for these different activities. And when we're planning these, we also need to think of the different tactical aspects that are going to be supportive in this process. So firstly, we need data. So we need to be able to capture the data, we need to be able to store it, we need to have access to the data. So if we don't have the right mechanisms for these, it won't actually facilitate the decision-making sufficiently. The second area is around the insights, whereby we need to think about the models that are going to be useful. We need to think about how the analytics can actually improve the decision-making capabilities. And we need to think about things like how we can be efficient with the link between the data, data types, data sources, and the different types of models that you're building. The next area that we really need to also consider is the optimization piece, in that when we're planning, we need to plan the right things. We need to actually have a sufficient level of confidence in our decisions. And where we don't have sufficient confidence, we need to communicate that with the right stakeholders, so that you may then start to build some kind of incentive-based structure whereby different parties are working together to handle the kind of challenges you may face. And the last area is around ACT, which is really about how we're going to put it into practice, whatever optimized process plan that we have in mind. So in that kind of area, we're really thinking of what skills do I need, what sort of tools do I need, what sort of instructions do I need to give to people. All those different aspects can be very, very useful. So with TES, moving forward, we need to think of all these different elements in a holistic manner. So if someone is interested in blockchains, or if someone is interested in digital twins, it's really important to associate how these technologies can solve problems, for what purposes, and really start to build the suitable return on investments for these different types of technologies. So moving forward, this is really a key direction where we need to think of how these different technologies connect to each other and how we can improve the value that we're offering across the life cycle. So overall, I'd like to welcome you all to this conference. We've got a very big program. We've got lots going on. There are 8 academic sessions, and we have also 6 workshops. And we're very lucky to have 5 fantastic keynote speeches as well as part of this conference. So I think the way we see the role of this conference is that the importance of through-life engineering services is growing. When we look at the major assets that are being managed or that are coming into service, we really need to think about how we can improve these solutions, how we can deliver these solutions in a cost-effective and value-generating manner. So we also need to think about what does the optimization of value and cost mean. So this is really critical, in that if we know this balance between value and cost, we can then think about what's worth investing in and what's not. And the other key aspect here is about how do we plan demand and supply. So for me, at this point, we really need to understand how does demand change over the life cycle, and how do we start to actually think about the resources that we have available to be able to deliver the supply. So if I'm thinking about things like sustainability, net zero, all these kind of aspects are coming into a lot more prominence in the TES environment. Now, we can only achieve these targets by having a good plan for the demand and supply. And I think the other really important aspect to consider is that we need to think of different technologies, different models, different processes, and really develop these in a very structured way. So these all need to be focused on the problems or the areas of improvement that we're looking into. So with that, I'd like to really welcome you to this conference, and thank you all for joining us at this conference. So with that, I think I'll now move to Helen. So I'd like to introduce Helen, who is our Pro Vice Chancellor at Cranfield University. Helen, I can see you, I can hear you.
Yeah, we've got the other camera on and I need to work out just to change the camera that's operating. Hold on a moment.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, perfect, great, thank you. So it's a great delight to welcome everybody to this conference hosted by Cranfield. Some of you may not be familiar with Cranfield, and I thought it would be just nice to give you a feel for what it would have been like if you'd been here in person. So if you'd been here in person, the first thing is you would have actually been able to hear the planes that are outside on the airport. And then I'm going to show you the Global Research Airport, which would have been right next door to where you are. So if I can make share screen actually work, which hopefully I will be able to. Let me just get this here. Can you see that okay or not? Maybe not. Hold on a moment. Here we are. Right, there we are. Share. Is that obvious now, the slide?
Perfect, Helen.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. So Cranfield is a very unusual university. It's the only university, certainly in Europe, that has its own airport, its own pilots, its own air navigation services, and its own aircraft. It was founded after the Second World War by the UK government as a College of Aeronautics on what was an ex-RAF base. And the myth is that when it was founded, originally the government approached Cambridge and said, would you like this College of Aeronautics? And Oxford found out and said, you can't possibly give it to Cambridge. And Cambridge said, you can't possibly give it to Oxford. So they placed it exactly halfway in between Oxford and Cambridge on this ex-RAF base. And we were set up as a purely postgraduate institution. So even now, it is purely postgraduate. It's a very small university in global terms with only about 4,000 students, but they're all focused on technology and management. And if you think about the context of the conference, with big assets, with through life engineering services, this is very much at the heart of what we do. So if you'd been here, you would have actually been in this building here, the Vincent building, I think. But the airport itself is here. And if I just pick out a few of the facilities around the airport, we've got, for example, the Intelligent Mobility Engineering Centre, and running from there through along here is an autonomous vehicle test track for real autonomous vehicles. And if you go back to these issues about through life engineering services, okay, so connected and autonomous vehicles could be seen as a single unit, but actually they're systems. If they are electrified, they are part of a much broader system where you've really got to look at the whole through life again. This one here is a hydrogen production facility. And there are huge issues around the through life of hydrogen for propulsion, whether it's on the ground, whether it's in the air. Hydrogen for air propulsion is becoming a really highly focused on area. But looking at the through life again is a really important issue. So we're looking at hydrogen production. We also investigate hydrogen for aviation propulsion, for example. And if I come along here, this is the Aerospace Integration Research Centre. This is a joint initiative with Airbus and Rolls-Royce, a huge research facility which enables the development of aerospace structures. As we work our way along here, this is DARTEC, the Digital Aviation Research Technology Centre. That's a £65 million project with the government and a number of of company partners, including Thales, for example, and we're looking at digital aviation. So it's the whole ecosystem around airports, airlines, aerospace. How does everything fit together? And again, very important, through life engineering services, issues around that, lean maintenance, repair and operations issues, for example. And on the side of here, you can see the hangar of the future, actually fully centered up to enable these big assets to actually be maintained in such a way that the system is optimized. If I come round further, we have a global ground demo. We have a ground demonstrator aircraft. We've got the first digital air traffic control center in the UK, and thinking about big ecosystems again, digital air traffic control is a very important aspect of that. And I'm sure as part of this conference, you're going to be talking a lot about digital twins, and again, very much part of where we are at too. So if I come along here, we have something called the National Beyond Visual Line of Sight Experimentation Corridor. So drones, very important aspect of many different big systems. But at the moment, getting the regulatory framework around drones operating in shared airspace with the piloted aircraft is an incredibly important aspect. At the moment, drones are not allowed to be flown beyond visual line of sight. So there's an experimentation corridor here agreed with the Civil Aviation Authority, which enables us to explore the integration into a single airspace of piloted and unpiloted aerial systems. We operate our own aircraft, so we're also looking very much at how we can teach the aerospace engineers of the future. But I think coming back to through life engineering services, part of our mission as a university is ensuring that the people who graduate from Cranfield are as highly skilled as possible in this very future-looking environment around through life engineering management. So I'm going to hand back to John at this stage, but I do welcome you to this conference. I really wish you had been here in person. It's a very exciting place to be at Cranfield, and there's lots of exciting R&D going on. I'm sure you're going to have a huge number of very interesting conversations here at this workshop, and I wish you the very best for this time here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Helen, thank you very much. So we'll continue with the conference now. What we'd like to do is give you a quick introduction to the program of the conference, and we're also going to really give you an introduction to Remo. So with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague Gustavo. So Gustavo, would you like to take us through, please?
Yeah, welcome everyone. So I hope you enjoy our platform, and as you know, if you are living on Earth, you realize that COVID has disrupted everything, right? So our plans to run this in-person conference was shifted into running an online platform. So instead of complaining, let's make the best out of this, right? Actually, there's a very interesting platform. It's specifically dedicated for conferencing, and it has different advantages. Like you can post a question to everyone, or just make a comment on the chat, and go around those, explore those things, make those questions, and then when you go into the rooms themselves, that you will be allocated to a single table, and you are allocated randomly, right? So there are a maximum of 5 people in that table, and that's for you to chat with each other, see who is around, move around the tables, get to know people as if you were in a real in-person conference. But you can do this in slightly digital way, right? Maybe a little more anonymous, because you just can chat with that person. So then leave leave one of those chairs empty on each table, so that there's only 4 people, and then you can move around. But then when there is a presentation on that room, either in the auditorium or from 1 or 2, the host of that meeting will pull everyone back from the tables into the whole auditorium, and then you will not see any more the tables. You will be focused on the presentations that are going to be delivered. And if you're going to presenting on that session, then you have speaker privileges. So that there will be you will be allowed to share your screen and your microphone, and unless you are that speaker, you won't be allowed to speak. But if you want to make a question, you can use the chat. But if you really want to do it orally, let us know, and then the host of that meeting will allow you to speak. But you need to let us know. That's why you won't see a mic icon to speak unless you are a speaker, a designated speaker. All right, so this is more or less how the whole digital conference is gonna run around. Then when you're in this big room with everyone listening to the presentation, you can please participate through this chat and make the questions. And then there's gonna be 15 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for questions. And that's for general sessions. Then we will have 5 keynote sessions, and those that are going to be focused on sustainability, technology challenges at CERN, and this is related to this big asset, how to maintain this big investments over decades, contribution of tests to mitigating global warming, the value of digital asset management, and then serialization of manufacturing. So you can see these big challenges that society have right now, from understanding the physics, the basic physics that govern the world, and very fundamental questions, up to how do we mitigate global warming and at the same time have a society that works. All those things are really connected to TESS, and there's a contribution from TESS for that. So then we have 8 sessions in which we're going to be presenting 39 papers, and those are full papers or extended abstracts. And then, as I was saying, you will be assigned to a table, and then you will be taken for the presentations. Those sessions are focused on damage, prognosis, and service. So it's assessment of damage, and then design for prognosis and for service. So how do you focus your design thinking on the service? Maintenance optimization and sustainability and manufacturing. All those are the big topics of the conference, as John more or less gave an overview of how TESS is related to this, and which are the topics that we're covering. We also have 6 workshops, and then a few of those are marked as lunchtime workshops. So this is specifically the time in which there are no other sessions in parallel. So go grab something for lunch and go back to enjoy the workshop. And then, as I was saying, there are 39 papers, and we have already those published in the proceedings. And I'm posting right now the link on the chat to you can access those papers. And by the end of the conference, what we are going to choose is the best paper, and this is based on the reviewers' evaluation, the mark they gave to the papers, and also the comments from the presentations. So all right, so great. So we have a question from Steve. Will it be possible to move between rooms in mid-session if a specific presentation are very interesting and in different rooms? Yes, you can always get out of one room and go to another. This is exactly the same way as if you were in a real conference. So the fact that you are all gathered into presentation mode doesn't mean that you cannot move around. So let me welcome Pan. He has been organizing all the practicalities and sessions organizations on this conference. So Pavan, could you give us a little more details?
Thanks, Gustavo. So generally, if you're in the presentation mode, you would not have access to the floor space. As you have signed in, you'll be randomly allocated to a table. As Gustavo mentioned previously, please could you occupy only 5 chairs in a table, no more than 5. So there is a spare chair, 6, for any of the hosts or any additional people who wanted to quickly jump across to your table. Now, when we are in the presentation mode, you do not have a direct link to go on to room 1 and room 2. What we are going to do is, during the sessions, before we start the session, we will send you the links on the chat box in the main auditorium. Another way of doing it, the easiest way is, in your browser on the top left corner, you should have the menu button, which is nothing but a circle with 3 bars horizontal. If you click on it, it should open up My Joint Events. Please do not click it now. You'll be out of this session, but all of your sessions should be populated there. The invites were all circulated, so if there are any issues, please let us know. Because the sessions are being planned, we will try to leave a link for other sessions in the general chat area as well, so that you can click and move in just in case you don't have access. When you're also back on the floor, you should also see links for the panel sessions on the right side, saying room 1 or room 2 as a link.
Perfect. Thank you, Pavan. So I think we are pretty much done with the introduction of how this conference is going to be running. I just want to reiterate once more that we are streaming most of our content on YouTube, on Cranfield's channel, and I just reiterated the link there. So please feel free to share this on social media, or anyone that you think might be interested in casually, listening to some of the presentations. So with this, I go back to John. I wish you good luck and you have a fantastic conference. I really hope you enjoy the content of this conference. I think it's going to be fantastic, and it has been very, very interesting reading through the proceedings and working with the papers. Thank you so much for contribution, and welcome.
Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you, Pavan. So I guess we're now really making a start with the conference. It gives me a lot of pleasure to invite Professor Daniel Brisso, who will deliver our first keynote. Daniel, are you here? We'll just wait a moment for Daniel to join us.
I do see Daniel connected. If you're hearing what we're saying, Daniel, please turn on your camera and your mic, and then should be able to see you. And if something is not working, reload your browser. That's one of the key things. When something is not working, just reload the browser and let's see if it works.
Yeah.
There it is.
Hi, we can see you and your screen, Daniel. That's perfect. So you're muted though. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So
can you hear me as well?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yes. And can you see my my screen?
Yes, we can do. Yes, perfect.
It's perfect for you, not for me.
I'd just like to quickly introduce Daniel to the audience. Professor Brisso is from the University of Grenoble, and he's been a professor of engineering design and eco-design since 1998. He is the director of the School of Industrial Engineering and Management, and he's a ARP fellow. He is the vice president of Grenoble IMP for Strategic Planning and Development, and head of the research cluster on engineering for industry and innovation. So with that, Professor Brisso will give us an overview of sustainability-related themes in manufacturing and test type environment. Daniel, when you're ready, would like to do your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, John. It's complicated for me because I don't know if you hear me well or not. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And you can see my slides because I cannot see my slides on my screen at this moment. And is it the first slide that you have or another one?
Yeah, the first slide with the title Sustainability Challenges in Design from the Life Cycle Perspective.
But it's not possible to move at this moment to the second one. I don't know why. Okay. I'll try again. Sorry for that. It works when I said just before the conference starts, of course.
Can you do Alt-Tab to the presentation? So it's behind, your presentation's behind the Remo platform. So if you could bring the presentation forward on your screen, that should help.
I can't see.
Or if you like, you can share the screen. Or send it to me if you like.
Okay, I'll try.
Daniel.
I don't know what happens now.
Daniel, if you
Yes.
click on share screen, there should a
Yeah.
pop-up should come up. Have you got your presentation in one of those tabs in the pop-up? Click
No.
on that.
Yeah. I did that.
Yeah. If it
But
is
it
easier,
was just the first slide. Now I cannot enter again. No. Sorry about that, but something goes wrong with the system. I suppose I have to go out and go in, maybe?
could you send me the presentation? I'll share it on your behalf, if you don't mind.
How do you want
Can
to
you
have it?
email it to me, please? Is it possible?
No, I don't know how to do. I am somewhere in your system. Just maybe the best is to start again, because when it starts, it works properly. It just because of
Perhaps you could do that. If you could refresh your browser, it should help you solve the problem.
Sorry, I don't understand what you want me
If
to
you
do.
refresh your browser, the main browser, you will go out and you'll join back again. Sorry, folks, about the temporary disruption. Daniel will be with us shortly.
I am back. And I can.
Hello, Daniel.
Okay. Seems to be better for me.
Okay,
We can see it.
You can see.
Please use the arrow key to navigate between the slides.
Yes, good. Okay, so sorry for this difficulty. to start my presentation. Very sorry about that. And thank you, John, for your kind words. And thanks also to your group for organizing this conference in so difficult times. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to give you a talk on my vision of the future and what should guide the reflection of engineering designers. First, the future will be sustainable or there will be no future. Second, the main issue for sustainability is design. We are investigating many solutions to make them better, and we regret that solutions in themselves are not enough rich to be improved at this time. We are calling for solutions sustainable by design. The title of my presentation is therefore Sustainability Challenges in Design from the Life Cycle Perspective. We are in an industrial perspective. Do you know the main word today we have to redesign? Do you know the main word today we use when you are talking of the industry of the future? It's redesigning. It is clearly said we were wrong with the initial design and we have to redesign every facet of industrial life. Redesigning the manufacturing business model for services, redesigning industry, redesigning growth, redesigning planes, redesigning services that deliver. We can say that in every newspapers at this time, industrial newspaper, professional newspaper, it is said that we have to redesign the different processes within the industry. It is not only business that we have to redesign, but we need also to redesign life and how we would like to live in the future. And also to redesign the different jobs in the industrial future, the way we would like to work and the plants we would like to work in. It is also clear that we need a holistic approach to design in a way we are happy. What is paradoxical is that we are unhappy with what we have designed so far, and we have never had so many powerful tools and methods at our disposal to design. We know how to analyze all the processes involved throughout the life of a system and to integrate them. We know how to design value for business, how to understand customers' experience, and the result stays again and again, the design doesn't fit at the end. And do you think the question is different now with the both sanitary and economic crises? Not at all. There are plenty of conferences on industry within the crisis and after the crisis, or in between two crises. This one announces the next one I am organizing with French companies in 2 weeks, and the points are the same. Companies have to redesign a business more resilient, and customers would like companies to redesign more useful and more adapted products and services. Here were observations, and research has to point out how to go further in a way where design meets sustainability. After this introduction, let's go through the presentation itself. We need a framework to guide the design of the products and services of the future. We have one today that seems to be very relevant and very powerful, but unfortunately, it is too limited. We have augmented products and services with intelligence, with smartness. We are still adding sensors, adding algorithms to products and services, and it's never enough. We have also improved a lot the environmental burden of products and services, dividing impact by 2 or 3, and sometimes more, and it's not enough. we have to go beyond that. And we would like to enrich the design framework with new features, a make sense evidence, and a meet-use attitude. The difficulty is not the philosophy for designing. We have very good ideas and very guidelines for that. The difficulty is the tooling to support designers. Methods, tools are not already there, and they have to move very quickly. I would like to contribute to this objective in this presentation. Let's go to the first point, and the frame. The initial frame is very there because of smartness in product. And let's see, for example, a vehicle, an autonomous vehicle like the Vice Chancellor has said just before, or not so autonomous as well. Many sensors, many instructions to assist the driver and help him, help her to drive safely and to minimize resource consumption. I am very fond of that because it gives me peace of mind when driving, and it's very, very important in my opinion. But it's not so simple because there are different opinions about smartness of vehicle. Pros say it's wonderful because security is dramatically improved with a very cadenced traffic. And cons say that the world is as cheerful as troops parading through the streets in a standardized life and a sad life. We have also smart materials, and it's very important for designers. Designers mainly construct from basic materials, and they are interesting also to get materials with new properties and new functionalities, like we can have new materials every day at this time. New materials, new control function of these materials. Here also it seems to be very good for designers and very good for products, but opinion could be different here as well. Pros say how important it is to have as many various and as many efficient materials to innovate. And we have also cons that see how many hazardous waste we create with these new materials. And the same also for algorithms and artificial intelligence, with pros, with cons, and a very, very huge debates in every country in the world at this time. John, I added especially for you this slide yesterday night. When I saw in your program, the program of the conference, that for you in the UK, the lunchtime must be for workshops and not to have a lunch. It was quite surprising for a French guy. And the discussion cannot end. It's a problem of culture sometimes. A smart cooker like here is totally crazy and useless for French cookers. It's certainly a wonderful idea for British cookers, isn't it, John? If I can see how you manage a program of a conference. What is also important to say that sometimes there is a high consensus. That is the case with this smart coffee cup. It is certainly one of the most smart products that we have designed from a long time. And all that without any sensors and without any algorithms. Smartness in product is very useful and opens product improvement to satisfy customers. It's clear. And we are happy with that. Nevertheless, it doesn't make consensus, mainly because it doesn't make sense for everybody. I think it's the main point to retain from the presentation. In the framework we have today, there is a second point which is eco-efficiency. It's also very, very important. Smartness and eco-efficiency as the two pillars of the frame for designing at this moment. Eco-efficiency is not new. It has been defined since 92 with the objective of progressively reducing ecological impacts and resource intensity throughout the life cycle to a level at least in line with the Earth's estimated carrying capacity. Here is part of the definition, part of the objective 30 years ago. As a definition, how to estimate eco-efficiency? Eco-efficiency increases when the value of the product increases and when the environmental impact decreases. This function, as it calculates, allows reducing progressively ecological impact, but was of no use to reach the Earth's estimated carrying capacity level. There is a good point if we want to increase eco-efficiency, but increasing eco-efficiency doesn't say that we can be in the limit of the Earth. Let us here also some example. First of one, a good example is air conditioner. In a very few years, we were able to decrease the environmental impact of a cooler by 30%, and in the same time to double the value of the cooler. Their eco-efficiency was triple, about triple. Very good results in terms of technical point of view. But at the same time, the demand of coolers exploded. And finally, the environmental impact of coolers had dramatically increased. It means that we have improved the technologies within the objective we had at this time, but the result is not there as a system. A second example, which is also a very good example, is bulbs. From initial bulbs, then we have low energy bulb, and now we have LEDs. And from initial bulbs to LEDs, we divided the power by 5 and augmented the life by 20 for the same quantity of lumens, which is the unity for that, the units for that. And this performance improvements led to an eco-efficiency increase by 5 in a very short time, in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, like it is. Here again, in terms of technical product, the eco-efficiency led to a very, very interesting product. But due to this improvement of performance, we created new, totally crazy events. Here it is a Japanese park with 7 million of LED lights to create the ambience. And all that annihilated the individual benefits of each bulb. That is now. Eco-efficiency, it's a very good concept. It's sure, and everybody knows that. It guides designers toward better products and better services from the environmental point of view as individual product, but it fails with the new opportunities in use. May I have a first conclusion and the objective that we could have? Sustainable products, sustainable services, sustainable systems, of course, will benefit from the huge potential of smart and eco-efficient products, but only when they make sense for everybody and they make use. I think is the main point I have to deliver today. It means that we need a make sense and meet use framework for companies to design the solution of the future. And I would like to contribute to that. We can start with a frame for a make sense evidence. First, I know that you know all that. We are very happy that all the countries in the world agreed with the 17th Sustainable Development Goals. It is the 5th anniversary this year, only the 5th, may I say. But it's here now, and it's very important to know that we have sustainable objectives, and as engineers, we have to design products and services to contribute to that. And engineers developing products and developing services, it is clear that we can greatly contribute directly to many of the sustainable goals. We are even great decision makers and influencers, and number 12 in responsible production and consumption, but also in number 9 in industry and infrastructure design, and also in number 8 on decent work conditions. And we contribute to the other one. The frame exists, and it's very good. And the question is how to make it operational for engineers. A second highly important part of the frame is that we know much more about the boundaries of the planet now. The Earth's carrying capacity is not infinite. It's clear for everybody. There are limits and planetary boundaries to the Earth's eco capacity. Yes, there are finite resources on Earth, and it has been clarified what those 9 resources are. Now we know them, and they only are, and we have to survey when they are. And we have, because of a scientist, the means to estimate them now, and it's quite interesting for that. Here also, scientists have built a framework which has the merit of existing, but which is not yet operational when you are in a company to design new products and services. We have to work. And if we want to connect the sustainable goals and the planetary boundaries, we have the concept of sustainable development. You know this concept. We have been knowing this concept for a long time. And you know the 3 dimensions that interact for that. It was initially said that sustainable development was a question of balancing properly the 3 dimensions. It is, of course, a fundamental property, but this hypothesis, the hypothesis that every dimension, environment, social, and economic, was equivalent in sustainable development, and equivalent, and their contribution were equivalent to the equilibrium that is defined here. It was also said that the 3 dimensions was more or less independent in their essence. It was good for several years, but now we can see the limit of that. We can say today that we need a stronger definition of sustainability. Sustainability doesn't mean 3 dimensions that are equal to be traded off, but an economic dimension that is nested inside the social dimension, that is itself nested inside the environmental dimension that supports the life. All that, let's consider the absolute sustainability. Michael O'Shea, Sami Kala, Christopher Mann has defined in several papers all that, and you can refer to them if you want to have more details. what can be summary? Manufacturing, which is at the heart of our issue as engineers. Manufacturing is just a part of the economy, which is a part of the society, which demands sense and sustainable development goals, which cannot exceed the planetary boundaries. It's what is said in this picture. It's a kind of new definition of sustainable development, which is not contradictory with the previous one, the initial one with Bonfeld, but which is much better oriented to the future. We have the framework now to develop new designs that make sense. It should be practically for designers in industry. It should be used reversely and starting from the finite planetary boundaries. First, it should allocate parts of the planet treasury to every engineer's starting design. Design is a target-driven activity. It's a purpose-driven activity. Two comments. The first one is that targets and purposes are not static. It changes. It's dynamic with time and with volume. And the second comment is that it's very sympathetic frame with a very good philosophy, but it's not so easy to make this framework operational. And here there is a lot of job to do for scientists and for industrialists as well, practitioners. Let's continue with the second part of the framework for a mid-use attitude. In this section, I would like to focus on production systems and asset management design, which is an important topic for through life engineering activity design. I am sure that each of you has already sought to improve the performance of their individual processes in assisting workers with digital technologies. John said a lot of that thing about that in his introduction. Moreover, I am sure that we were disappointed not to achieve the performance, the expected performance that was announced. There are different activities. It could be and the results are the same, or not very different. There is activities of co-design and innovation, of course. Really in production, to pilot and adapt to demand, and also in logistics and supply chain for the collaboration and the coordination of activities. And in every case, we were happy to introduce these new technologies, but at the end, the performance was improved, but not at the level that was expected. And it's not a question of workers' skills, because it's the same in R&D, production and logistics activities, as we can see. And the theoretical benefits is not there or not at the level expected. What happens in general, technology and process are adapted to the referent worker when we design. This worker is associated with the development of the solution. But finally, it doesn't fit well to the other workers when it is disseminated in the company. You may envisage other types of activities that go beyond the classical improvement of performance, giving the workers the capacity to manage their activity by themselves, within the room left for that, of course. They could develop new skills, they could increase expertise, have more autonomy and be happier in their job, finding more sense to it. New technology allows to think differently the task assignment. Finally, there is the third cluster of activities to design. How to train workers in their tasks. We have to design learning activities to make people ready and comfortable with their job. When designing the three categories of activities, designers have to make coherent the technology, the worker, and the organization. We propose a framework that as well needs deepen tools to be used easily by practitioners, but the idea is there. What is important to retain? It is not the technology first, then the user in a fixed organization that we have to design. Technology plus user plus organization is the same object that we have to design. Practically in this framework, we have created an expanded view of the user experience that is now well known. Second, the solutions must evolve since user skills evolve continuously. It means that, again, it's not static. It moves and it continuously moves. And we have to design things that will move with the user skills, that will move with the production, that will move with many things continuously. And to finish my presentation, I try to summarize where we are. First, is it clear that the frame that we have today for designing products and services of the future? We are focused on technology performance, neglecting sustainability and real use. We have good results, but it's not enough. The design of products and services should be driven by sustainability targets, sustainability purposes to make sense and meet use. And what do we need for that? It's quite easy to say we have to do that. But practically, what is missing today? First, we need a stronger definition of sustainability, an absolute sustainability. I try to give you some elements. We need joint efforts, and joint means academics and professionals together, if we want to really go further, to move from efficiency that is now well understood and well used to an absolute sustainability thinking. It's a problem of thinking. It's not a problem of tools at the beginning, it's a problem of thinking. Then we have to instrument this thinking if we want things to happen. We need also a stronger definition of user product organization coupled, let's say, a new user experience perspective. Because it is the objects, the main objects that we have to design. It's not independent things that we have to configure to work together. No, it's an only design with all that. Here again, we need to work together, academic and industrialists, to move from human adapted to product design to a multidisciplinary situation thinking. But here again, we have to think differently what we have to design. And from technical point of view, what is missing today? How to connect the high-level goals that we have, the sustainable development goals, the planetary boundaries, the well-being of people, it's very, very high-level goals, to go to practitioner, to the requirements to the product to be designed. We don't know how to do today, but it's certainly the main point we have to solve. Second one, I already said, we have to address not static functional units. They are dynamic, they are moving, they must be flexible. It's not currently what we have in our different tools. We have also to develop new functions to estimate and to measure the sustainability of solution. We have to define what it is, but we have to give to designers the tools to estimate and to measure that. And just to conclude the conclusion, okay, from a theoretical point of view, we can have a very nice framework, but it would be much better to have operational method to really help this framework to be in use. Maybe for that, the first step could be to have good case studies with high success, meaning that by example, we can help designers to think differently in terms of sustainability and in terms of object design based on good case studies. And from that, to have some guidelines that could be very operational for companies. I think that it could be a good opportunity for our community to work on this point from today. Thank you for your attention.
Daniel, thank you very much for your presentation. So now we have about 6-7 minutes for questions and answers. I'd like, firstly, if there are any questions, please post them in the chat here on Remo. I'd just like to maybe kickstart the questions. So from my perspective, can you, Daniel, make some recommendations on, in design phase, how can we think about the life cycle and how we can implement sustainability? So what are the key aspects and how can we consider from a design perspective the life cycle sustainability?
Yeah, it's a good question. I did not insist on this point during my presentation, but you insisted a lot in your presentation at the beginning of the conference. It's the reason why it was very good for me just to lean on when you said. Of course, it's totally important, and now it's well accepted for a lot of designers, that it is the whole life cycle of the product and the service that must be think at the moment of the design and that must be optimized. I think it's clear and it is accepted. We don't have to design. But it is clear as well that it's not so easy because of the organization of companies, because it's in different services that we have to design, that we have to maintain, that we have to do different things. And even the answer in terms of design was to have design projects where we can merge together different persons coming from different services. It was the main point at the beginning. I think now it's done in many companies. And we are really after that. It means that it is the same importance to work in the use phase of the product than on the manufacturing phase of the product. And because of some of your work in current field, it's also clear that maybe value and cost comes more from the use phase than from the manufacturing phase. It depends on product, it depends on service, it depends on many things, but it's not negligible at all, but it was before in the last time. I think that we have to take care of that. We don't need to go to sustainability if we forget the entire life cycle of the product.
That's great, thank you. And again, the audience, you're please welcome to ask any questions through the chat function. There's another question, Daniel, around, you mentioned sustainability has 3 dimensions in terms of the society, the environment, the kind of commercial aspects as well. And you also mentioned that they don't necessarily need to be balanced. Could you just maybe go into a bit more detail with how do we define the balance? And if we don't have a balance, how do we prioritize across these 3 dimensions?
Yeah. Initially, it was said it was a question of balancing everything. And finally, it's not. Of course, there are three pillars. Of course, these three pillars must to be connected, and all three must exist. It's clear and now totally accepted. The difference is that these three pillars are not so independent as it was said at the beginning. If you increase the social, just to keep the equilibrium, you must increase the economic and you must increase the environmental pillars, just to keep the equilibrium and the balance well done. And with that, you go out of the limits of the earth. It's the reason why it's not sufficient. And what is the new paradigm for that? Is to say that there are some priorities, meaning that at the end, the power is at the earth, at the limit that we have, the boundary limits of the earth. And it is not possible to go further than that. It means that sustainability is leading by the environmental point of view. And within this environmental point of view, we have what the society wants. What I said in my presentation with the terms of makes sense for everybody. And when it makes sense, it's a problem of economy. Just here, the prioritization. It's not because I want to prioritize that, it's because it's like that. There is some limits of the earth, there is some objective, some purpose for the life, and economy must manage all that. Here is the new paradigm for sustainability, sustainable development. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. There's one more question. So regarding the eco-efficiency calculation, is there a proposed standardized value metric? And similarly for environmental impact, how do we make these comparisons across different products?
I think that we make a big step some years ago, 20 years ago, with life cycle assessment methods. That for the first time gave figures to things that happened. It was a quantitative tool, and it was much better for engineers and much better to explain to everybody what to do. But we can see now the limit of that. With LCA, we can compare products, we can compare service within a boundary that we have to define, but we can do that. Because we have to define this functional unit, as it is said, practically it means that we are in the process of optimizing the things, minimizing. But we can do that. What is said today that it is not enough. Today, designing new product is not a problem of optimization of the ancient product. It's a question of designing, inventing, creating new solutions that are totally different from the previous one. And for that, it's not possible to use the tools that we have before that were oriented by optimization, meaning that the initial solution was close to the final solutions. It's not the case no longer. And we have to reinvent tools for that. We are working for the environmental assessment from the LCA perspective to see if the functional unit is not static and can move during the design and during the life, what do we have to change in the theory of LCA for that? We can see today that certainly we have already 80% of the science that is already there, and it's good. But we have to move a little bit. And we have not these tools today. There are plenty of people that are working on that, but it's not there. Sorry for engineers, but we have to wait a little bit. And what I said in my conclusion, I think that we have to work together. If we want to be very practical in the results, we need to make to merge practitioner and academics in the same perspective for the future.
That's great. Thank you, Daniel. I'm conscious of time, so we're now going to move into the break. I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation. It was very, very informative. And I'm sure during the breaks, we'll be able to have virtual chats with the audience. So after the break, we're going to start at 11:15. So we're going to have 3 parallel streams now. From the first will be about workshop 1, and then we'll also have 2 parallel academic paper sessions. So with that, I hope you can enjoy your break, and we will start the sessions again at 11:15. Great. So Pavan, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I have seen further 2 more questions from, again, follow on from Keith and Saber. Please feel free to message Brousseau directly. He should be able to respond. Thank you very much for this morning. I hope most of you managed to log on to our system well. I hope there are no major issues. We are in the presentation mode. Just wanted to make sure that when we actually close this presentation mode, you will be actually sent back to the floor. Now that the floor space will be opened, please look for an initial of your first name, however you've joined, on a chair, and you will know where you are. Feel free to move across the table. The next session starts at 10:45. Could I request all the chairs for each of the parallel sessions to go to the respective rooms? So for session workshop 1, it will be the auditorium. When I exit the presentation mode, you should see links to room 1 and room 2. The agenda for each of the rooms should be displayed on the ribbon above, which also says next to the Remo logo. If you click on it, it should open up the presentation. May I also suggest for the academic sessions, please could you get in touch with the host in the session and also the chairs in the session so that we are aware we are in attendance. We start presentation at 10:45 in the respective rooms. Any questions, please drop us a message on the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.